since then. And I also teach linguistics classes. I am a social linguist, so I basically study how people communicate in different social contexts. And so I do teach and do research too here at SUU about those type of issues, how people communicate with other people and what does have to tell us about their social characteristics and features. I teach Spanish at all different levels here, and I also teach sociolinguistics, Hispanic sociolinguistics, and Hispanic linguistics too.
That is wonderful. Thank you so very much for sharing. And I was particularly interested with your focus and your attention and passion associated with communication. Can you talk to us for a moment or two and tell us how do you make yourself available and accessible to your learners through communication? Is it all through just speaking? What are some other tools that you use to communicate and engage your learners?
So by teaching what's known as a second language, sometimes it's challenging for students, to engage with you at the same level. But I teach to use the target language, as we call it, as much as possible, so students can have that experience too. So I basically try to teach them not only the language, the communication part, but also, teach them other abilities through the language. And I make myself available through, like as we all of us do here at SUU, office hours, and I try to speak as much Spanish as possible because I think it is very useful for students to just get in the mindset of using a target language and just feeling that they're becoming a bilingual speakers. That makes a huge impact on their learning process. As for my upper division students, they are usually more fluent or more advanced students. So it's, I would say, easier to communicate with them at that level. But I try to kind of like identify what is the best way to communicate with them, either it is in English or Spanish, or what strategies work better for them to engage with me, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
Fantastic. I'm really impressed with that desire and ability to speak a second language and to use two languages. I think it's a great role model for our learners to be able to see faculty engaging in those processes. And I'm just very impressed with you and appreciative of that activity that you engage in. Certainly, you here at SUU, you mentioned SUU and the learners that we engage with here. You've seen a wide variety of learners through your classroom and through your activities, and the resources that are available here at Southern Utah University to help us engage all of our learners. Can you talk to us for a moment or two about how you meet the needs of your students with referrals to the Disability Resource Center? Have you had some experiences with that you would be willing to share with us?
Of course, yes. So I had some experiences with students with disabilities in Chicago, although there was a little bit different because you engage with them during one semester and basically probably will never see them again. But here is different because you can see those students grow and you can see them achieve their goals. You can see them graduate and pursue their careers. And so you can see the whole process of how they grow and you can be part of that process too. And that's why since I started working here at SUU back in 2014, I started attending these trainings that are offered by the Disability Resource Center. And it's been a great help for me to become a more effective teacher, and also just like to identify what are the specific needs of these students. One of my main goals as a teacher, as a professor here at SUU, is to make my classroom more inclusive. And so one of the ways of doing that is basically focusing on what the individual needs of these students are. And working with the DRC also helps you to identify in an easier way what are those needs. It might, require to go the extra mile, but I think it's all worth it. And so the first thing I do once I get the referral from the Disability Resource Center and the ADA office, as we call it, is basically to determine how much support they need from me as their professor. And then I work individually one-on-one with the center to see what is it that I have to provide for those students to be successful in the classroom. And last year, I also applied for a CET grant for inclusive teaching. And basically that grant will allow me to start redesigning my classes so I can make them ADA compliant. And what that means is I'm trying to make my classes more like digitally accessible for students with disabilities and with diverse degrees of disability. I think that's very important for making an inclusive classroom. It takes some time, but I think it's important and essential to be able to provide all students in the classroom with the materials they actually need and the ones that are going to work for them.
I'm just very impressed, Junice, with that perspective of all. All does mean all, everyone, each
Yes.
individual that we have. And that inclusion, that invitation, that comfort level, I believe students do recognize that, realize that, and appreciate being recognized and valued.
I think they do. Yeah, I think, and I have this idea of like teaching for all those who do not know. And that means basically that, you know, some students have had experiences that allow them to succeed in class because they might have people who have guided them through the process of going to college. But there are some other people like, you know, first generation college students. And being one myself, I know that it's hard to navigate academia, especially here in the US. And so those people, if they have somebody who helped them, you know, just like see how things can be achieved, how things can be, I wouldn't say easily because there's nothing easy, but you know, like there are ways that you can actually go through things and through processes. I think that makes a whole lot of difference. Also, it gives them a lot of more confidence on their, you know, abilities to complete things and to achieve goals. I think that is essential to have somebody who has been through the same things as you and just like, you know, show you how different ways in which you can achieve your goals.
Well, and I love that success that you see in your learners and that you've identified and you see that success. And can you take a moment or two and talk to us about how you review your prior instruction, their previous successes, how you build on those foundations to prepare your learners for what's coming tomorrow or next week in your class? What do you do? What are some of the fun things you do?
So my classes are never like a one-day lesson thing. It's more like a continuum. So basically, in language classes, for instance, you do give them some input, you model the activities or the exercises, then you practice with them, and then finally you ask them to produce some output. And so in my classes, I just design them in such a way that there's never like a one-day lesson. You have a one-day lesson, and then you have another day to practice or do like applications of the content you saw in class. And then the next day, you also review and apply what you saw in such a way that you have like a transition, like a smoother transition between one topic and the other. It's more like a continue, like, you know, you continue teaching, I would say like in a transitional way. So you go from one topic to another, and basically you make them see that they are able to make connections in, you know, in the larger picture. I think that's a very useful ability they can get actually. Not only like to see, okay, we'll learn about this topic today, and then tomorrow we'll learn about something different. It's more like, okay, how can we connect these two things? How do they work in the larger picture? And how can you basically make those connections yourself?
Thank you so much. I'm very impressed with that concept, that metaphor of the continuum, of a continuing conversation that you have with your learners. Certainly, that leads to you have to at some point make some assessment to help you direct where that continuum, where that conversation goes. How do you use assessment efforts to inform your academic and learning support planning and practices to to continually improve your student learning outcomes? Can you talk to us about how you do that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So I found out that end of the year evaluations are fantastic, but they're not very useful for the people in the class that semester. So I think that they have great value to improve your classes in the long term. And I do that every semester, of course. But I think that having partial evaluations of how the class is going is more useful for students actually in the class. So what I do is basically I do assessments in three different, at three different points in the semester. So students can tell me, and I do that anonymously, so they feel like, free and confident to say whatever is working and what is not working. And so I ask them to tell me what is working for them, how we can improve the classes, what modifications might need to be done for the class to be more suitable for them. And so it's a little bit more work, but I think it works better because then the adjustments can be made in real time. It's just like, if this is not working for you, then it might not make sense for me to continue doing that. Like I will do lecture, but then you don't learn well through lecturing. You learn better using other strategies. So I try to focus on those comments that students make that will just make the classes, I wouldn't say better, but I would say more effective for them. And of course, those same comments, I use them for improving the class in the long term, along with the final or end of the year evaluations. It's been working great. And even though it's a little bit more work and evaluations sometimes, don't show all of the issues in the classroom or all of the things that are going well, I think it's a good way of determining what is going on and how students are receiving the content you are trying to teach them.
What a wonderful example of student-centeredness. Maybe as you've identified, it's not necessarily the easiest or the fastest or the most comfortable way for you, but it is a way that is very student-centered. And by receiving that assessment and feedback, you know how to meet their needs. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that I also ask different questions, right, at different levels. If you ask the same questions over and over, then that might not work that well either. So what I do is at different levels, and I give them some sort of like responsibility, like this is your learning process. I'm here to guide you and to help you through it, but this is basically your responsibility. And so I ask them questions also so they can realize that, okay, it is my responsibility. So I am the one who needs, I'm the one who needs to do the work for this, to learn this. And so the professor is here to support me as much as I need to. But really, this is my process. So I ask them questions that show exactly those, like that switch, like from expectations at the beginning to what are you doing to, just make your process more efficient for you, to like what were your, like how did it work in general for you at the end of the semester.
Fantastic. With that student-centeredness, I really see that you have a great deal of respect, concern, I'm even going to say courtesy for your learners. What suggestions would you have for your peers to help us be more respectful or demonstrate that concern for our learners? Any other ideas that you would share with us?
Well, I think that's important for all of us to show and I think that most of us probably do that, just to show that we are, even though we are in this environment, we are able to have differences, but at the same time, we are able to professionally and respectfully discuss different things and still not agree on everything, but just respect each other's point of view. I might not agree with many of my students' opinions, but I still respect them and value that they share those opinions with me and the rest of the class. And in my syllabi, I have a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement, and I specifically and purposely state that it is important for me to be respectful and to respect and value diversity and equity and inclusion. And so I said that from the very beginning, and I talked to the students, and I talked to them about how important it is that all of us understand those ideas. I also insist on talking about the importance of creating and also maintaining after you create that environment, creating and maintaining this respectful and open environment. And in that environment, all of the students should feel like value. They should feel that their opinion is important, or at least that their opinion is respected, and that they can share that openly and just feel comfortable doing that. And I showed them my concerns in different ways, right? So one of the ways in which I show that I am concerned with them, it's basically observing them, because some students sometimes are going through difficult situations and their behavior change in the classroom. And so when you see that student is doing well or very well and then changes that behavior, suddenly that might point to the fact that something might be going wrong. And so some of the students just stop coming to your classes because, life happens and they have lots of difficulties. And so in some cases, they only need an opportunity to just, make up some of the work, or just to reconnect with the class. I think that giving them that opportunity is key for their success in class and in general, in their careers. I also use the link alerts to issue, reports for those students who suddenly disappear from my classes. But most of all, I think I just repeat to them how important they are for me, and how much time I invest on them, because I believe that they can do great things and they are doing great things. And at the same time, I try to be aware of their, like, any different behaviors that are, I'll say, affecting their performance in class. So it's like there are several sides of it, and it requires some extra time, but you don't have students that are going through that situation every semester. So I try to do it as much as possible, not only telling them that I am concerned about them, but also showing them in different ways, contacting them individually, etc.
Boy, what a wonderful recruiter we would have if students left this campus saying, I'm important to Professor Acosta. What wonderful tools we provide. Our time is about up, Junice, but I just wanted to leave you one last moment here. Anything that I haven't asked you that you're prepared to share that you didn't get to share today?
I think we all should do our part to be more inclusive in our classrooms, to consider students who might have not had experiences that other students, need to be successful. And I think that going the extra mile, whatever that means to you, is important for students, and students notice that. They notice that you actually care about them, that you are there for them. It's not always easy to show them that you are there, but there are ways in which you can do that. And I think it's important to value all of our students for who they are and what they are, and being more, inclusive overall in our classroom. I think that is essential for all of us in our classrooms.
I think we all benefit from that. Junice, thank you so very much for your participation today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Reach out to Dr. Acosta as you see her on campus, and tell her thank you for being a part of our SUU family. We'll see you next month, and have a great month, and enjoy your spring break. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye, Junice.